Tress of the Emerald Sea by Sanderson. Tress is a girl living on an isolated island that everyone wants to get away from, but she has a friend Charlie that she likes talking to. One day, his domineering father sends him away across the oceans to the sorceress, and Tress is devastated and realizes that she was in love with Charlie. Therefore, she makes it her mission to brave the dangers of the ocean, which on this planet are made out of little spores that are extremely dangerous, so she can find her lost love. Fun side story related to this book, I took a creative writing class from Sanderson, and he told us all about how to write great stories and all that fun stuff. He was talking about characters one day, and he said that he was going to lunch with, I think it was his uncle. And his uncle made it a point not to order what he wanted, but to order what he thought he could trade with other people for. So he would order something else, then he would try to trade with people, and he thought that was really quirky. And so Sanderson is telling us this, his class, and he's saying things like that. They're kind of interesting. But that's my character attribute. Don't steal that. Looking back on it, I wonder if I could have come up with an interesting character to trade with him that character for. I'll never know. Anyway, in this book, there's a character that's exactly like that, and I thought, he's thinking of his uncle in the restaurant. It was fun to finally see that play out, what that looks like in a novel. This book is very close to Terry Pratchett in style, which I wasn't expecting. Sanderson usually isn't so punchy with the jokes, which 70% of the time it was a good thing because I think he's pretty clever and he's pretty funny. So, 70% is a pretty good batting average on the whole. It's just something I had to get used to while reading it. I haven't read a lot of Sanderson stories, but from the ones that I have read, the hierarchy goes character, settings, plot. So the characters are really good, really interesting. He has some interesting setting, and then the plot tends to slow down. I tend to like faster paced stories. Not that it's terrible, it's just more slow moving, more drenching you in the details and the details of the magic system. It's like he's put so much investment in describing the characters and the setting that the plot takes a back seat. I think it's because I generally prefer books with that are strong on plot, and I think Sanderson's audience is more directed at details, the interesting quirks of characters, the interesting rules of the magic systems. So I think it's partly a personal preference choice there. In this novel, for instance, the characters are really interesting. I thought Tress was a great main character to have. She kind of reminds me of Dory from Finding Nemo, minus the short-term memory loss. She's naive, she has this mission that she's going for, and she doesn't know how it's going to work out, but she just knows she needs to keep trying something, and then something will work out in the end. That's pretty well played out in this story, and so that was fun to watch. And a lot of the story takes place on a pirate ship, and so a lot of the characters that he comes up there were also really interesting. But part of the problem with that is there's a good middle section of this book where I was kind of getting bored with it because not much is happening. We're just meeting interesting characters on the ship. To be fair to the book, though, I think it was well constructed. There were some twists and turns that I thought were interesting at the end. A couple of them I saw coming, but a couple I didn't. But overall, it functions well as a story. I do have a complaint with the ending, though, and it has to do with the narrator. One of the reasons that he decided to write this novel, as he wrote in the postscript of the book, is because he thought the narrator was interesting, which I guess is connected to his other Cosmere books, but I haven't read those, and so it kind of felt like I was at a party that I was never really invited to. It left a lot of open-ended questions for me. So I don't know why it was important to have this narrator guiding everything. Another complaint about the book, I'm not crazy about complicated magic systems because you have to use pages and pages to explain what the system is and what the rules are. And if you don't go through the pages and pages of explaining everything, then you feel cheated, that like you're just whipping things out of the air to fit the story. In some parts, I feel like that's happened here, but he does a decent job of mostly explaining it, with a few exceptions. Overall, I liked it. I thought it had a lot of funny parts, a lot of good lines. The writing was interesting, of course, as Sanderson always is. And Despite my complaints against it, I enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting to see what was going to happen next. So I'm going to give this book a lukewarm thumbs up and 3.5 stars.